The garage smelled of honest work, of motor oil, worn metal, and the faint, sweet scent of the honeysuckle vine that climbed the chain-link fence. Inside, Marcus moved with a quiet economy of motion. His grease-stained hands, scarred and knowing, gliding over the exposed engine of a sputtering sedan. He was a man made of calm surfaces and hidden depths, a single father whose world had been distilled to two essential elements: this small, orderly garage and the bright, 6-year-old son at its center. His daughter, Lily, sat on an overturned crate, her small fingers carefully coloring a picture of a blue bird. Her world was simple, protected by the quiet strength of the man who was her everything. Miles away, in a tower of steel and glass that pierced the clouds, Eleanor Vance surveyed her kingdom. Her office was a monument to sterile ambition, its panoramic windows revealing a city that felt more like a map than a home. Her hands, perfectly manicured, rested on a desk of polished obsidian. She was the CEO of Vance Dynamics, a titan of industry, a woman who had mistaken power for strength and solitude for independence. Her world was a fortress of her own making, and its walls were growing higher every day. She felt a familiar, hollow ache, the price of a life measured in stock points and market share, not in moments of genuine connection. The two of them, the mechanic and the magnate, moved in separate orbits, their paths governed by forces that seemed destined never to intersect. But destiny, like a finely tuned engine, often has components working unseen, waiting for the precise moment of engagement. That moment arrived with a furious, metallic screech. Eleanor's custom-built electric supercar, a silent predator on the pristine avenues of the financial district, died with an undignified shudder in the gritty heart of the industrial zone, just blocks from Marcus's garage. It was a machine of cold perfection, now rendered helpless. As she stepped out, her sharp suit and sharper expression, a stark contrast to the decaying brickwork around her. A tow truck driver pointed her toward the only garage for miles. "He's the only one who'll touch something like that," the driver had grunted. Eleanor approached the open bay door with disdain. "I need assistance," she announced, her voice clipping the humid air. "My vehicle has malfunctioned." Marcus wiped his hands on a rag, his gaze steady. "I can take a look." Before he could move, 3 figures detached themselves from the deepening shadows of an alleyway. They moved with a predatory slouch, their eyes fixed on the glittering jewelry at Eleanor's throat and the expensive watch on her wrist. A cold knot of fear tightened in her stomach, a primitive emotion she hadn't felt in years. Lily looked up from her drawing, her eyes wide. She saw the fear on the woman's face, the menace in the men approaching. She tugged on her father's jeans. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice a pure, clear bell. "Can we help her?" The question hung in the air, a declaration of simple, profound morality. For Marcus, it was never a question. It was a command. He gave Lily's hand a reassuring squeeze and stepped forward, placing himself between Eleanor and the encroaching threat. The 3 men laughed, a low, ugly sound. They saw a simple mechanic in greasy overalls, an easy mark. They did not see the coiled steel beneath the calm exterior, the years of training etched into his muscle memory, the silent promise of a protector. They saw a man, but they were about to meet a weapon. The confrontation was over before Eleanor could fully process it. It was not a fight. It was a disassembly. The first man lunged, and Marcus moved with a fluid grace that seemed impossible. A redirected arm, a precise strike to a nerve cluster in the neck, and the man crumpled without a sound. The second came with a rusty pipe swinging wildly. Marcus sidestepped the clumsy arc, his hand shooting out to grip the man's wrist. There was a sharp crack of bone, a strangled cry, and the pipe clattered to the pavement. The third, seeing his companions dispatched with such terrifying efficiency, hesitated for a fatal second. Marcus closed the distance, his movements a blur of controlled force. A palm heel strike to the sternum, a sweep of the legs, and the man was on the ground, gasping for air. Marcus stood over them, not even breathing heavily. He hadn't been angry. He had been professional. It was the detached, focused calm of a man performing a familiar, complex task. He turned back to Eleanor, whose face was a mask of disbelief. The raw, primal violence had been executed with the precision of a surgeon. "Are you all right, ma'am?" he asked, his voice even. She could only nod, her throat too tight for words. He then turned his attention to her silent, useless supercar. He walked around it once, his eyes scanning its sleek lines not with admiration, but with diagnostic intensity. He didn't need a computer or a manual. He knelt, his ear close to the undercarriage, listening to the ghost in the machine. "It's the primary power inverter," he said, his voice matter-of-fact. "There's a recursive feedback loop in the coolant pump's microcontroller. It's a design flaw. Shuts down the whole system to prevent a core meltdown." He slid under the vehicle. A few moments of tinkering, the sound of a soft click, and he slid back out. "I've bypassed the sensor. It'll get you back to the city. You need to have your engineers redesign the entire unit." He stood up, wiping a fresh smudge of grime on his overalls. He had just dismantled 3 attackers and diagnosed a multi-million-dollar vehicle in less than 5 minutes. He then looked at her, expecting nothing. "That'll be $75 for the call out." Back in her penthouse, the city lights a cold fire below. Eleanor Vance could not quiet her mind. The $75 she had paid felt like an insult. The man's competence was absolute, his quiet dignity unshakable. He was a paradox, a ghost. Who was he? The question burned in her mind. She had built an empire on information, on knowing her rivals, her assets, her threats. Marcus was an anomaly that her world could not account for. She made a call to her head of security, a former intelligence officer. "I want to know everything about a mechanic," she said, her voice tight. "His name is Marcus. Runs a garage in the industrial sector." The request was unusual, but the order was absolute. For 24 hours, Eleanor's corporate intelligence machine, an apparatus capable of digging into the deepest secrets of rival corporations and foreign governments, focused its immense power on one humble mechanic. The initial results were sparse. A decorated military career, honorable discharge, the tragic death of his wife in a car accident, and then nothing. He had simply dropped off the grid, his life becoming a quiet rhythm of work and fatherhood. But Eleanor's resources were deeper than public records. Her team bypassed firewalls and accessed sealed military files. Late the next night, the report landed on her desk. It was heavily redacted, but what remained was staggering. Marcus wasn't just a soldier. He was a legend in a world she never knew existed. He was a former member of an elite special operations unit, a Tier 1 asset specializing in combat engineering and asymmetrical warfare. He held patents on advanced drone guidance systems and armor composites, patents now buried under layers of classification. He had led missions that were officially denied, in places that weren't on any map. He hadn't just left the service. He had vanished, walking away from a world of power and prestige to raise his daughter in peace. The mechanic who had charged her $75 was one of the most brilliant strategic minds the military had ever produced. The next day, Eleanor returned to the garage. This time, she came not with arrogance, but with a profound and unsettling respect. She found Marcus showing Lily how to properly gap a spark plug. The scene of domestic tranquility was so at odds with the man described in the dossier that it gave her vertigo. "Mr. Marcus," she began, her voice softer than she intended, "I came to thank you properly, and to make you an offer. I want you to be my head of personal security. Name your price." He looked up, his expression unchanged. "I appreciate the offer, Ma, but I'm not for sale. I have everything I need right here." He gestured to his daughter, who beamed at the compliment. Eleanor was about to press, to argue that everyone had a price, when Lily walked over and handed her a piece of paper. It was the drawing of the blue bird, finished now, flying in a bright yellow sky. "For you," the little girl said, "so you won't be sad." The simple, uncalculated kindness pierced Eleanor's armor. She looked at the child's drawing, at the crayon strokes filled with innocent hope, and felt a crack in the icy wall around her heart. For the first time, She saw Marcus not as an asset to be acquired, but as a father protecting his world. It was this newfound vulnerability that allowed her to do the unthinkable. Ask for help. It's not just personal security, she admitted, the words tasting foreign. My company is in trouble. Advanced Dynamics. We're developing a new drone defense system, the Aegis project. It's supposed to be revolutionary, but it's failing. Every test ends in catastrophic failure. The simulations are perfect, but in the field they just fall out of the sky. We're about to lose the government contract. Someone is sabotaging my company from the inside. She paused, then looked him in the eye. My fiancé, Julian Croft, is the project lead. The name hung in the air. She was trusting this stranger with the potential ruin of her life's work and the betrayal of the man she was supposed to marry. Marcus listened, his expression thoughtful. He saw not a CEO asking for a consultant, but a person in a trap, looking for a way out. He looked at Lily, who was watching them with trusting eyes. Helping people was what he did. It was what he taught his daughter. Let me see the schematics, he said simply. That evening, Eleanor brought a secured tablet to the garage. On its screen were blueprints and lines of code that represented hundreds of millions of dollars of research. Marcus sat at his workbench, Lily asleep on a small cot in the office, and studied the data. To Eleanor's world-class engineers, it was an unsolvable puzzle. To Marcus, it was a familiar language. After 15 minutes of silent concentration, he pointed to a single block of code in the drone's navigational firmware. There, he said. It's elegant. Brilliant. Even. What is it? Eleanor asked, leaning closer. It's a logic bomb, nested inside a false diagnostic routine. On the ground, it reports all systems normal. But once the drone reaches a specific altitude and airspeed, it triggers a cascade failure in the flight stabilizers. It's designed to be untraceable, to look like a hardware malfunction. Whoever wrote this is no ordinary programmer. They're a ghost. A cold dread washed over Eleanor. The code was a whisper from Julian, a man she had trusted. They had proof of sabotage, but Julian was too smart to leave a direct trail. His digital fingerprints were nowhere near the corrupted files. They had the what, but not the who. Their first attempt to trace the code's origin led to a dead-end server in a foreign country, a digital ghost town. Julian had constructed a fortress of plausible deniability. For every step they took, he seemed to be 2 steps ahead, leaving them with nothing but circumstantial evidence that would never hold up. The company's stock was plummeting. The final public demonstration for the Department of Defense was in 1 week. If the Aegis drone failed, then Advanced Dynamics would be finished, and Julian, with his consortium of shadow investors, would be there to pick up the pieces for pennies on the dollar. The pressure mounted. Late one night, as they worked in the garage, the quiet hum of machinery, their only company, the weight of it all settled on Eleanor. She felt the familiar sting of isolation. All these years, she confessed, her voice barely a whisper, I built walls to protect myself. I thought if I was powerful enough, no one could ever hurt me. But the call is coming from inside the house. The person I let inside my walls is the one tearing them down. Marcus stopped what he was doing and looked at her, his gaze filled with an empathy she hadn't expected. The highest walls don't keep threats out, he said softly. They just lock you in, he told her then, in quiet, measured tones, about his wife Sarah. He spoke of her boundless optimism, her belief in people. He explained that after she died, the world he belonged to, the world of secrets and shadows, felt like a betrayal of her memory. He couldn't bring that darkness into Lily's life. I didn't run from a fight, he clarified. I ran toward the only thing that mattered. In that shared moment of vulnerability, their alliance was forged anew. No longer a business transaction, but a bond of mutual trust. He wasn't just helping her save her company. He was helping her reclaim her life. She wasn't just a client. She was someone fighting for a future, just as he was. With renewed focus, Marcus dove back into the code. He'll have to trigger it remotely, Marcus reasoned. He's too arrogant not to watch his masterpiece of destruction firsthand. The flaw isn't just in the code. It's in the man. He'll want to be there. This was their opening. They couldn't stop the attack, so they would have to control it. The plan was audacious, a high-wire act with no safety net. Marcus would write a patch not to fix the flaw, but to transform it. When Julian sent the kill signal, the patch would catch it, neutralize the command sent to the drone stabilizers, and use the signal itself as a tracer. It would turn Julian's weapon back on him, mapping its exact origin in real time and displaying it for the entire world to see. It was a digital mousetrap, and the fate of Vance Dynamics was the cheese. Eleanor had to trust him completely, to put the company she had built from nothing into the hands of the man she had once looked down on. She agreed without hesitation. The day of the demonstration was a storm of media, military brass, and corporate vultures. The air in the massive exhibition hall crackled with tension. Eleanor stood on the stage, a portrait of calm she did not feel. Across the room, Julian watched her, a predatory smile playing on his lips. He believed he was moments away from his ultimate triumph. He couldn't see the small, unmarked van parked a block away, where Marcus sat before a glowing laptop, his fingers poised. Beside him, Lily colored in her book, a small, quiet anchor of innocence in a sea of adult treachery. Launching Aegis, the announcer's voice boomed. The sleek, advanced drone lifted off, a symbol of Eleanor's vision and Julian's deceit. It climbed, reaching the precise altitude and airspeed Marcus had predicted. In the auditorium, Julian subtly tapped a command into a custom application on his phone. The signal, encrypted and invisible, shot toward the drone. In the van, Marcus's screen lit up. "Signal acquired," he murmured. "He's in. Patch is active." On the massive screens flanking the stage, the drone's live video feed was expected to cut out, to be replaced by a sickening spiral toward the Earth. Instead, the video feed remained stable. But a new window overlaid it. A map of the auditorium appeared, and on it, a single red line began to snake its way from a Wi-Fi router toward a specific seat in the VIP section. The murmuring in the crowd grew to a roar. Julian's face went pale, his smug confidence melting into pure panic. The red line stopped, pulsing over his exact location, a digital scarlet letter. Eleanor stepped to the microphone, her voice ringing with newfound strength and clarity. "It appears we have identified the source of our technical difficulties," she announced. Security personnel moved swiftly, converging on Julian, whose face was a frozen mask of shock and ruin. He was caught. He was finished. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Julian Croft was arrested, his network of deceit exposed. Vance Dynamics was not just saved, it was lionized. The story of the ingenious sabotage and the even more ingenious countermeasure became industry legend. And at the center of it all was the mystery of the consultant who had turned the tables. The next morning, 3 helicopters descended near the small garage, their rotors kicking up dust and leaves. It was a spectacle of power, the kind Eleanor once wielded as a weapon. But today it was simply transportation. She stepped out of the lead helicopter and walked toward Marcus, who was calmly tightening a bolt on an old pickup. "I think we need to make our arrangement more permanent," she said, a genuine smile reaching her eyes. "I want you to run my entire advanced research and security division. An office next to mine. A blank check." Marcus wiped his hands and looked at Lily, who was chasing a butterfly nearby. He then looked back at Eleanor. "I'll accept," he said, "but on my terms. My office is here." He patted the workbench. "My title is Chief Problem Solver, and my hours are whenever Lily doesn't need me. My job is to protect the integrity of your company, the soul. The rest is just machinery." Eleanor's smile widened. She wasn't losing a battle of wills. She was gaining a partner who understood what truly mattered. "Deal," she said, extending a hand. He shook it, the mechanic and the CEO, their two worlds now one. The final scene was not in a boardroom or a garage. It was in a park on a sunny afternoon. Marcus pushed Lily on a swing, her laughter echoing in the warm air. Eleanor sat on a nearby bench, watching them, no longer an outsider looking in, but a part of the picture. The broken supercar was a distant memory, a symbol of a life she had left behind. In its place was something real, something earned, something whole. A new family, built not on contracts and capital, but on trust, integrity, and the simple, powerful wisdom of a child who just wanted to help. Have you ever been underestimated? Judged by your appearance or your circumstances, while your true worth lay hidden beneath the surface? This is a reminder that true strength isn't found in a skyscraper or a stock portfolio, but in the quiet integrity of a good heart. It is the proof that genius can be found in a garage, and that the most powerful force in the world is the love a parent has for their child. Share this story if you believe in the quiet hero, the hidden genius, and the power of a second chance.